Welcome to the Accidental Experts podcast. I'm your host, Bryce Hamilton. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a child and family therapist. I have been in practice for over 15 years, and I'm also a mom of 4. So I know the challenges both professionally and personally. I'm so glad that you're here today to grow your parenting toolbox. Please come as you are and be ready to learn. My goal is to make you the accidental expert so that you can raise healthy humans. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm so glad you're with us. Today, our episode is going to be dedicated to moms, but no one else turn off the channel. There's important data that we need to know to support the moms in our lives, too. We have Hannah Dunham today, and she is going to talk to us about how to find the balance between being a mom, all the things that are on our plate of expectations, and how to do that. With that, let's get to Hannah.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, we're excited to talk about this topic of being a mom is hard. And I think, as a professional woman myself and also a mom, the balance is hard to come by. So I'm glad that you're here to talk about that. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my background is in chemical engineering. I spent 10 years in manufacturing and then quit to be a stay-at-home mom because the company that I was with really was not offering me any options conducive towards like having a child and also keeping my career. So I became a stay-at-home mom and at the same time pursued a master's in industrial and organizational psychology. So my little girl is almost 3 now, and I have a small, as in one person consulting and coaching company based on helping female engineers navigate male-dominated industries and helping organizations really support them like the way that they need to be supported. So that's what I'm doing these days.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think we have to champion each other, really. Like when women win, everybody wins.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I
Yeah.
basically built my business around like what I needed as a young female engineer, kind of struggling in those industries. So
Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of room
it
for
worked
growth
for
for
me.
sure. Yeah, yeah. So, what do you think makes a mom's role so challenging? And, if we're honest, there is not one description of a mom's role. We do a lot of different things, but what do you find is really challenging moms?
I think I think there's so much. I think that just starting out, the societal pressures that get put on moms to make the right decisions on everything to never mess up because the impact of that feels so huge. Even from before you have your kids, people ask you, what are you going to breastfeed or bottle feed? Like, are you going to stay at home with them? Are you going to work? And I think immediately puts moms into categories and
Mhm.
it pits moms against each other a little bit in kind of an unproductive way. And we get triggered by the decisions other moms are making that aren't the same as ours. So I think, that whole narrative that one way of motherhood is right is really hurtful to moms in general. So that's one. And then I think also societally, just the mental exhaustion and the weight of having to do so much. I think, women do obviously the majority of the caregiving and the in-home work, regardless of if they are working outside of the home or not. And that's exhausting. I mean, I think we're just starting to talk about it a little bit more, but just the mental load of like the appointments, the remembering at night to wash the lunch boxes, the just every single thing that piles up on us that we have to remember to do in order to have like, happy and successful kids. And it just feels like that weight never really fully gets lifted. So it's exhausting work for
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're definitely in it. And then if we have a career on top of that, so just being a mom, those are just talking about the mom
sure.
responsibilities. What do you think gets in the way when you think of being somebody who is both working
Mhm.
and a mom?
Yeah, I think it's again goes back to am I making the right decision? I know for a lot of people like there isn't a decision. For my best friend, there's nothing she would love more than to be a stay-at-home mom with her child, but that's just not financially feasible for their family. So, I think that's the number one thing is just am I making the right decision for my kids, for myself,
Mhm.
all of those things. And then on top of that, you're balancing, wanting to move up in a career. You're faced with a lot of penalties as a mother returning to work that, you know, men don't have to face and you don't really even know about until you do get back to work. So all of those things that make your career even harder, make you maybe feel resentful of it or like stuck and stagnant. And then, you know, having to have the same energy that you, or at least putting the expectation on yourself of having a lot of energy when you get home from work after a long day for your kids so that you can spend time with them and connect with them and all those things after, like, as if you didn't just have an exhausting day at work, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
just a lot.
You're almost 100% at work and 100% home, and
Yeah.
the downtime. I think that's one of the things that I struggle with as a mom is balancing the time for me to renew. Like I'm good at giving 100% at work. I'm good at giving 100% to the kids.
Really.
I don't do so well at giving 100% to myself.
Yeah. I think like one of the number one things, you know, with some of my clients and stuff is like nobody has just looked them in the eyes and said like you deserve to take an hour on Saturdays to go run by yourself if that's what you want to do. Like no one has ever given them permission to take those things. And they've also not told them that, like, actually, when you get home from that run, you're going to be a better mom for the rest of the day because you got to prioritize yourself.
Mhm.
Like, I think that if they knew what the return on investment is on like taking
Mhm.
that time for self-care, they might, you know, put more effort. If their partners knew what the return on investment was, they'd, make it mandatory for them. If they
Mhm.
knew that their partners were going to be happier and like more energetic and all of those things, like we would all be invested in the self-care of moms, I think, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know even for myself, like when I think about like if I sit down to do something like with my husband after the kids have gone to bed, and then I remember like, oh my gosh, I did not wash the lunch boxes. That was so that resonated so deeply with me.
Oh yeah.
Of like, it's like, you only want to own so many lunch boxes. Truth be had, right? Like you don't want to have extra lunch boxes in case you don't wash them.
Right.
But it's like, it's hard for me to sit down and enjoy those moments when I have so many things that are on my to-do list. And what I have found is like helping my partner to understand what I need. Like,
Mhm.
hey, these are the 5 things I need to do before I can really relax, has helped him to participate more in that.
Yeah.
He's always wanted to participate, but I haven't been a very good delegator. So like that's
Yeah.
partially on me, right? To be like, well, I can do this all myself and I
Mhm.
can, but not happily,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that's the part. And like we use the time loading the dishwasher, unloading the dishwasher, or whatever the task is, switching laundry, to like talk about our days and those kind of things. So we make it more of a cohesive thing versus it just being me. Cause I also find that I get resentful
Yeah.
about that, to be
Absolutely.
like, I have to do this all on my own, but I really don't. And I know that some people don't have that luxury, but in my house, if I ask for help, it's generally welcomed, right? Like
Yeah.
it's the feeling as I'm in the way if I don't know what I'm doing. So I
Mhm.
need to be told or ask or like, have a conversation around this part.
Yeah. I think the resentment part is so, key. It's like when we wait to have conversations that we know that we need to have, resentment is what gets in the way in between those two moments. If my husband comes home today and I tell him something that's been on my mind, then we can sort through it versus if I wait a month and every single time he doesn't do what I'm have in my mind that he should be doing, that's a month's worth of resentment every single
Mhm.
day, that then that conversation in a month is going to be 10 times more emotional and 10 times more charged than it would have been if I just had that conversation today. So that's definitely, I think, a big takeaway for moms is like ask for help before it gets to be too much for you. Like,
Mhm.
hope again, if you're in kind of the situation where you feel like that will be met with gratitude versus, anger or something like that.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, any conversation is best had early, right? Like it doesn't matter what the conversation is. And the more I think about any topic, right? Whether it's like
Yeah.
educating our kids on their body boundaries, like that, it's better to do that early. Whether it's talking to our partner about a weekend that's coming up, like I'm feeling stressed already about this weekend, or, asking your parent, hey, can you watch the kids? Like, I need a date night, or like, I need time away, or whatever it is. What do you think? I know that so many moms experience burnout, both as a mom and as a professional. What do you think gets in the way of that? Why does that happen?
Yeah, so I think I look at this from the perspective of like organizational psychology a little bit because we know why burnout happens at work. And a lot of it has to do with a lack of control. And it kind of it parallels with the self-care thing. But when you lack control, like say in your career, you have a very demanding boss, and that boss is asking you, telling you what to do every single day. You don't have any agency over what those tasks look like. You don't have any agency over who you work with or the projects. You're basically told to sit down, do this job, go home. You don't have any kind of free will in the situation. Burnout happens not necessarily when we're overworked, but it happens when we don't lack control over the work that we're doing. And the same thing kind of parallels with when we're at home, when we have those toddlers who are demanding things from us, when we don't feel like we can sit down for a second because the lunch boxes haven't been washed, and we lack control because all of these things have to get done and we're the ones responsible for them. So I think, you know, it's a double whammy if you are facing those two things kind of at the same time. But, you know, if you can think about how to put control back into your life as a mother. And, you know, for me, I'm big on like Sunday night meetings, like getting the whole family involved, like giving the kids control over their schedules, over what they want to do every single week, over their weekends, over their snacks, over all of that stuff. Giving, you know, my partner control over when is he going to play golf this week? And then, you know, it's kind of reciprocated in that way. Well, if you get the golf, then I get the 4 hours on Sunday afternoon, you know, whatever that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
But I think like any way that you can create an environment where you have control, and it's not just control over when you're doing all of the mandatory tasks that keep this household running, but control over what it looks like for you to express yourself through hobbies or interests that you might have, those kinds of things. So, you know, when we don't have those things, I think burnout is more likely to happen. We get exhausted with our children. I've definitely faced this before, even only just having one, but I think we all know what that's like. I think a great analogy of this is like when you get home from the hospital with your newborn, you are a slave to that newborn. And
Mm-hmm.
we all felt burnout. I think, you know, at the 3 or 4 month mark, when they become just a little bit more independent, it's like this haze lifts off of us.
Mm-hmm.
That's a perfect analogy. It's like we are a slave to all of the tasks, all of the things we have to do all of the time. Like, how do we introduce a little bit more free time and control over those, the hours that we have in the day? I think that would help a little bit.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned self-care. How do you feel like that falls into this?
Yeah, so I mean, self-care looks like something different to every person. You know, there's a lot out there that just says like, you know, self-care isn't taking a shower, and like that depends on the person. It might very well be, you know, and also just this idea that self-care is like going and spending a bunch of money on like a massage or a weekend away and all. It's like, no, self-care, number one, requires sacrifice. So, yes, you may have to put the lunch boxes in the dishwasher in the morning or something like that in order to have 15 minutes alone the night before. Or you may have to, you know, work in the evenings when your kids go to bed so that you can get an hour at the gym, you know, in the morning, whatever that looks like. I think people think that self-care is just going to happen to you. And no, it often does take sacrifice. Or it
Mhm.
could look like your partner having to sacrifice. So maybe they go for 9 holes of golf instead of 18 so that you can get your time in, whatever that looks like. But so, you know, I think that that is part of it. And then the other part is finding something that truly does energize you. I love to just lay in my bed. Like that energizes me just to lay in my bed and read. Like you will find me there every time my daughter's taking a nap on the weekends. Like that
Mhm.
energizes me. Some people it's going on a run or whatever that looks like, but start small and then build those habits over time to where they're non-negotiable parts of your day. And then I
Mhm.
think eventually that becomes like everyone knows what mom's doing on Sunday at nap time. She's in the, you know, it's like a
Mhm.
well-established theme in the family. And it's not like all of a sudden you are asking for something that is not, you know, expected of the whole family to agree upon, you know.
Yeah. Well, and I think, something we talked about having conversations earlier. I think this is also something depending on how old your kids are,
Yeah.
talking about their own self-care. Like,
Mhm.
my daughters will set limits and my son with their siblings, like I need some alone time. right?
Mhm.
Like, and I'm like, mommy needs alone time too. Like, I
Yeah.
need time where I just do something for me, even if that means I'm just reading on the couch, or I'm,
Mhm.
outside planting something, or I'm whatever it is, right? Cooking, but I just want to do it by myself this time.
Yeah.
And so we talk about it's not that I don't love you or want you here. I do, but I want to be the best mommy that I can be. And so sometimes that means that I need time to just do something for me. And
Yeah.
my kids get that. The 2-year-old, not so much.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Right. He's not there yet. But I think, everybody else gets it and they like the way it feels. When I come
Mhm.
back, my kids have said, like, if I've had a stressful week at work, they're like, do you need some alone time?
Yeah.
And I've been like, yeah, I should probably like
Yeah.
take a bath or something, right? Like I should do
Yeah.
something to rejuvenate myself because maybe I'm not coming at the best place.
Mhm. Yeah. And I mean, I think it also goes back to like identity. I think like, as we have kids and it, our identity is often jumbled up in like the day-to-day hustle and what our kids are wanting and like
Mhm.
all of those things. And like, I think that's where a lot of women struggle. I was just talking to a friend about this. It's like she's gotten to the first year, to the end of the first year of her son being born. And she's like, I don't remember who I was before this, And so like it's the same thing with control. Like how do you introduce those things back into your life that make you feel like you again? And for me, like my daughter wants to listen to the Lion King soundtrack every time we're in the car. And like for me, I don't want to listen to it so I'm like, we're listening to my music today. I respect and I understand that you're disappointed that Lion King's not coming on, but that's what's important to me because I'll lose my
Mhm.
mind if we listen to Lion King one more time. Like,
Yeah.
and that's important to be modeled to her that what she wants is not the only thing that matters. Sometimes
Yeah.
what mommy wants too is very important.
Yeah. Setting boundaries and teaching them how to listen to other people's ideas and be okay with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In
Yeah.
our car, we take turns. Everybody gets a turn. Right.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that helps me to keep my sanity in the car as
Yeah.
well, that I get to
Absolutely.
pick. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also our other rule is one song only, every song can only be played twice in a day. That one's helped to keep sanity too.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do we find the balance? I mean, I think, something that occurred to me when I was thinking about having this conversation with you is, I find a lot of joy and success at home. But I also find a lot of joy and success at work, and it's easier to measure my work
Mhm.
success. Like I know when I'm doing a good job at work.
Yeah.
I don't always know when I'm doing a good job at home. And sometimes my kids are the most critical entity, right? Their
Mhm.
reviews of my performance might be not so great.
Yeah.
And they're always demanding. It seems like it's never met, right? Like the need is they always have more needs.
Right.
So how do we figure out how to find the balance and that we're not like escaping to work or leaving work because we feel guilty? I think there's just so many emotions in this.
Yeah, I just totally relate to that. I remember like when I quit my job to become a stay-at-home mom, I thought, I was getting so much validation at work every single day. I always knew I was doing a good job. The numbers spoke for themselves. And then I got home with this one tiny baby and she's crying all the time. She is not
Mhm.
telling me I'm doing a good job. And I was often thinking, I did not think that like managing 120 people would have been harder on me emotionally or would have been easier on me emotionally than managing just this one tiny toddler. So
Yes.
finding that balance is so difficult. I think part of it is like just the confidence that comes with knowing that you're making the right decision. I think it's seasons too. It's like riding on the professional success if that's what gets you through the long nights with toddlers at home, like and knowing where your true worth is. I know that sounds
Mhm.
really like cliche and bubbly and everything, but truly that was the journey that I had to go through to be okay as a stay-at-home mom was like, no, this work has value. The work that I'm doing here is just as important as the work I was doing, in corporate America. And that was definitely a process I had to get to find the balance that like this is okay and that was okay. Those are both valuable jobs. I think just on the day to day, knowing that like no season is going to last forever,
Mhm.
I think when we're in the middle of it, we're just hustling and trying to get through, especially like summertime for me was so difficult with the kids at home and everything like that. it's like every day felt like just one step closer to school being back in, and then we get to school. I drop her off last week and I'm like, where did the summer go? Crying in my car.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that roller coaster, but just no season is going to last forever. You've been also, I think one thing I like to like help try to put in perspective is like, think about all the hard things that you went through in your life up until this point. You got through every single one of them. This is just one more hard season and you will get through it too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also like when it is too much for you, knowing when to get professional help, like yourself, a real therapist who can help kind of right size your emotions and put a perspective on your reality is like, bar none, as somebody who's been in therapy for 5 years, like the best thing you can do for yourself when it becomes too much and when you can't find that validation at home
Mm-hmm.
anymore. You can't find that validation within your professional success, like knowing when to phone it in and get some help for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something that's helped me is having goals. Like the self-care is great,
Mhm.
right? And that's a goal that I have for myself that I've been growing because I have a tendency to pour everything out of my cup to
Yeah.
everybody else. And remembering that like that's not good for me. But I think setting goals, like, and also like what does success look like at home? Like I get to define that for myself.
Yeah, totally.
Right. And so like doing my own performance review, right? Like of, was I able to stay calm? Like, is that the part that
Yeah.
matters? Was I patient? Did I feel like a bedtime is a big thing for me? I love tucking my kids in at bedtime. It's like my favorite time of the day.
Hmm.
So it's like, did I get to tuck them in most nights, right? Because every night isn't possible. And also, things happen and whatever, and they have somebody else to tuck them in, their dad, and that's great. Or sometimes we go on a date and there's a babysitter, but like, is there somebody there to tuck them in? Yes. Like
Yeah.
somebody physically tuck them in, that matters to me versus being like, go to bed. So it's like
Yeah.
those kind of things where it's like, that I get to set my own goals and then knowing that like even if I don't meet that goal, that's okay. Because even in our jobs, we don't meet every goal all the time,
Yeah.
right? We're able to say like, okay, here's the plan of how I'm going to meet this goal and then we try something else because
Yeah.
sometimes it works perfectly, sometimes it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes what makes work easier is we have a very defined job title.
Yeah.
As
Hmm.
a parent, we are everything, it feels like,
Yeah.
right? We're like the transportation, we're the lunch packer, we are the good night person, we're the nurse, we're the psychologist, we're the
Right.
all the things, right? Like we play
Yeah.
all of these roles and it can be exhausting to switch from one hat to the other.
Yeah, totally.
Do you find moms struggling with that too?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that that's what it kind of plays on the theme of just like the mental exhaustion of like all these things you have to remember all the time, and also this overwhelming pressure that you have to show up in every single category like 100% happy and 100% present, and I think releasing ourselves from that expectation is one of the best things you can do as a mom. For
Mhm.
me, I will admit my daughter goes to gymnastics on Wednesday night. I do not enjoy it. I don't like it. I don't like to go at all, and I'm not a big bedtime mom. Like I prefer the mornings with her. I really like the structure of that. Bedtime is chaos to me and I don't enjoy it that much. I love, giving her hugs and kisses. Other than that, it's her dad's area of expertise. But just like it's okay that bedtime is not my strong suit and it is
Mhm.
yours. It's
Yeah.
okay that I don't like taking her to gymnastics. I think motherhood is like we often put all these extra expectations that we have to be the best at everything or the happiest at everything. And sometimes it's just a game of showing up. Like
Mhm.
it's I'm at gymnastics and I'm have a smile on my face, even though in my mind I'm like, I really wish I was at home on the couch watching TV, right? Like, that's okay. I'm still
Mhm.
there. I'm still showing up. And she's not going to remember, she's not even going to know that I'm not enjoying myself. Like she's going to remember like mom took me to gymnastics when I was little. Like
Mhm.
that's it. So I think just it's okay if you're not enjoying every part of it. It
Yeah.
wouldn't you don't enjoy every part of your professional career either,
No.
and you're not hard on yourself for that. In fact, we kind of glorify the parts of our job that we hate a little bit. It's like a loves company around the water
Mhm.
cooler type thing, but we
Mhm.
like don't allow ourselves that same grace in motherhood.
Yeah. I once heard her name's Natalie Up, and she quoted this phrase that has really stuck with me. It's not all or nothing, it's all or something, right? We
Yeah.
don't always have to we don't have to have our dial turned up to 100% all the time, right?
Mhm.
We can show up, right? And I think sometimes we are own harshest critic, right? Like no one else is judging us the way that we're judging ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's okay for us to give permission to ourselves to just be ourselves, or not to go to the meeting for whatever, or not be part of the PTO, or not whatever, right? Not be the coach, not be, you don't have to be all the things. It's okay to do that. Because I
Mhm.
think that in my life, showing up for my kids in the ways that I enjoy most is also helpful.
Yeah. Totally.
Because I can be a better mom in those moments. But if there's like certain things that I just don't really love, I mean, I do plenty of things I don't love.
Right.
But I think, if somebody else enjoys that more, I am happy
Yeah.
to allow them to do that part. Or
Mhm.
I do drop off and somebody else does pick up,
Yeah.
to share the load. We don't have to be all of the things. It's okay
Mhm.
for our kids to have a great relationship with their grandparents that help out, or their
Yeah.
cousins and their aunt and uncle or whatever. And if you have supports in there, or a babysitter, right? Like somebody else who just really loves on your kid is also totally great. And I think sometimes we feel like we have to be all those places, but we
Yeah.
don't, right? We
Yeah.
don't.
A friend of mine, like I was texting in a kind of community group chat, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm the donates money mom. I'm not the like brings a homemade snack mom." And it's like,
Hmm.
that's great. Like I
Hmm.
love that.
Yeah.
And just know that that's the kind of mom you are and be good with it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's definitely times I've been on all sides of that, but I know
Mhm.
that for me, there's some things making that I love. And also sometimes it's like, no, I don't want to make a poster. Sorry. Nope.
Yeah.
Not
Don't
in
make me
the,
make a poster.
don't make me do
Yeah.
it. But I think it's okay that we give ourselves that grace. I think you're right that we don't give ourselves a lot of grace to just be where we're at today. Like, oh, today's actually a really good day. I feel like doing this. Okay, great. Today is a really hard day. Like emotionally, I just can't do that part. Like I'm
Yeah.
not in the place. And I think we can talk to the other people in our lives to be like, hey, I'm not 100% myself today, right? Like I
Yeah.
just don't have the energy for this, or I need to do this in order to have the energy for that. And so where we can do it, I mean, I go on tons of walks with my kids. I love to go outside. I love to be outside.
Mhm.
And a lot of times I don't talk a lot on walks. I
Mhm.
just am existing, right? And I haven't said anything to my kids, but they just notice that, and nobody really talks on walks. I mean, we can,
Yeah.
right? But it's like I
Right.
just like need that, and it's good. So sometimes we have to do the things with our people, right?
Yeah.
But we can still get our needs met in that way. But I think it's about getting quiet and noticing, like, what do you really need?
Yeah.
Like, what do I need? Like, I need a break. Okay, what does that look like? It looks like somebody
Mhm.
else loading and unloading the dishwasher. I am a big advocate for kids doing chores and helping around the house. And
Mhm.
so I think we can share the load. Like everybody lives in this house. And so everybody can help. My kids,
Yeah.
even the 2-year-old loads dishes, right? Like not super well, let's be honest, but
Yeah.
the intention is there.
Right.
But we can all do different things, or puts the bowls away because those are easy to access. So I think we can
Yeah.
also bring our kids into this tribe per se, right?
Totally.
And I read an article a long time ago, and I can't remember who wrote it, but they said there's 3 options in motherhood. And I think this is as a parent in general, but the article was about being a mom. And it said
Mhm.
there's 3 options, but you can only choose 2. And the choices are your mental health, happy kids, or a clean house. And
Yeah.
I'm letting the house go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times there's just not enough energy to have the house be to the place where I would like it. And
Right. And
sometimes I
which of the
laugh.
3 really matters in the
Yeah.
end? Like, it's
Which
comfortable
two do you
house.
yes, it isn't. Nobody's going to really remember that
Yeah.
part, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think, I laugh sometimes when friends come over and I haven't had a chance to like really debrief from the week of putting everything where it belongs. And I'll be like, I'm just keeping my house like this so you feel better about how your house looks like.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
but
but
the reality, yeah. Go
I mean,
ahead.
there's something so amazing about those friends that we have that like you just couldn't care less about what your house looks like when they
Hmm.
walk in the door. Like there's something so freeing about having those people in your life that it's like, I can be wearing a sweatsuit and haven't, showered it all day long, whatever. And my kid could have Cheerio stain, whatever it is. And it's just like, yeah, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
Nobody's house looks good. Like, it's fine.
Yes, yes, yes.
I'm also the fifth of six kids. So like, what is a clean house? I've never experienced that in my life. So
Yeah, and I think that's an important piece of like we all really are in this together.
Mhm.
So, I think as moms sometimes we feel in competition with each other, but
Totally.
really I think it should be the opposite. We're here to support each other, to bring each other up instead of down, and I think that in and of itself if we could shift that mindset of like, hey, I have extra energy. Whose kids can I take to dance tonight?
Yeah.
Right? Or how can I lighten other people's loads? What you find, at least in my life, when I'm doing that, then I find that other people do that too. And it's such
Yeah.
a lovely thing. And it's okay and it's good. And I love having my kids be in the car with somebody else's so that they can have good conversations and experience different things and just
Yeah.
growing, right? Those
Yeah.
opportunities.
I mean, before kind of like modern society, that's how things were. That's where the phrase like it takes a village comes from because, the children were the community's responsibility. It wasn't just parents in a silo with their children. It was very community based. So I think like and that's definitely something I want to get better at, especially as my child like enters school and everything is like, where is the community that I can rely on and that can rely on me for those times when,
Mhm.
and just also like the trust in other adults and like just all of that kind of thing that might not come naturally if you're stuck kind of just at a house with me and my husband.
Yeah, totally. Well, and we forget sometimes because we're so focused on this that we forget to ask for help. And I know that I can do it all myself kind of person and I'm growing past that part. And so asking for help has been very humbling, but I am constantly amazed at how people show up to help.
Yeah.
Like they want to help. And
Yeah.
that's an amazing piece for me and helps me to find value in my parenting journey too of like, wow, all these people offered to take my daughter here or my son there or do this or help with that or bring a meal or whatever the dynamics were based on whatever was going on. And it
Mhm.
has been lovely.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
So tell me, what have you learned in your journey as a mom that has changed your life?
I think that's such a big question. I think the importance of knowing who I am. I think that's a natural journey people go through in their 20s anyways, but it's kind of challenged and questioned a lot when you become a mom and
Mhm.
like we already talked about your identity definitely gets like muddled in kind of the responsibilities of being a mom and like all of the interests of your children and all of those things. And I've really been on kind of a journey, for lack of a better word, over the last year of like, okay, I was this person before I had children, and I am this person now. And I like the person I used to be too. So how can I like be a new version of myself that respects me as a mom and me as a single person and all of those different kind of in between identities of Hannah?
Mhm.
And I think like knowing that has made me so much more confident in the decisions that I make. I don't like question. I think, if I had another child, I wouldn't care nearly as much about the societal expectations set on me because I know I'm so confident in who I am now. And I think that that wasn't something that I necessarily felt when I first became a mom. So just really like, and it sounds crazy to like put work into finding your identity, but truly that's what it is. We come and deciding who you want to be and setting goals in order to get that. Whether
Mhm.
it's, for me again, I'm always going to talk about therapy and be an advocate for it, which I know you're fine with,
Yeah, yeah.
but like that's such a good way to, I think, in a more professional, like constructive setting, like sit down and say, like, this is who I want to be. How do I get there by the end of the
Mhm.
year, or whatever it may be. But just knowing who you are, I think that it's such a broad concept, but what it really translates to is so much more confidence in your decision making as a mom and in your career and everything.
Mhm.
I don't think I
Yeah.
ever knew the value of it until I became a mom and I lost that identity. And now
Mhm.
back to like, okay, who am I? I get to decide, I get to make it happen for myself.
Yeah, which is also really cool that we can add such a huge task, right? Or responsibility to our lives of being a parent. But then also we can recreate ourselves at any time. We
Yeah.
can change our favorite color, change our favorite sport, change what we do in our free time, change our
Yeah.
hobbies, change everything, right? We have that capacity. We could become a vegan, even though we used to eat meat, right? Like we
Right.
can do any of those things at any time. But I
Yeah.
think when you become a parent, because we don't do a very good job at preparing parents. I don't know about you, but I thought I was prepared, right? Being a child, and dealing with children and doing, basically child psychology and being a play therapist. Like I knew all the things, right? But I didn't
Yeah.
know how it would change me.
Right.
And that was the part that I wasn't prepared for. And I think, um, it's okay that that is really hard. And it's almost like you can't do the work until you're in it. So you
Yeah.
can't start at a place that you don't know yet, but to know that it's hard. And I remember I had this older lady as a neighbor, and she said to me, she was like, "You look exhausted," when I had our first baby. And I was like,
Mhm.
"I am exhausted." And we are at like maybe like 1 month or a couple weeks old, and I was just exhausted. And she said to me, "It's okay if you leave the baby in the crib for a minute. They'll be safe, and you can walk outside just for like 5 minutes and come back, and like everything will be fine." And I
Mhm.
was like, I just needed permission
Yeah.
to do that, because it was like I felt like I was literally tethered to
Yeah.
this person, that I was the only, like I was the food and nourishment and support and diaper
Yeah.
changing, even though my husband was great and showing up great in that,
Right.
he couldn't breastfeed. Right.
Right.
So it was like trying to navigate those things. And even if we were bottle fed, right? Like
Mhm.
I think I would have felt that same feeling
Yeah.
of tied downness, and like I was so excited to have this tiny little baby, and
Yeah.
also just so overwhelmed
Yeah.
by like, what have I just signed up for?
Mhm.
And will this get easier, and does it get better, and will I ever be able to take a shower by myself ever again without a crying
Yeah.
person in the background, right? Like I think
Yeah.
those things of like also just giving ourselves again grace of like knowing that this is a way harder journey than we realized we were signing up for.
Yeah. And I think that speaks so much to the importance of having community and mom friends, which when my daughter was 6 months old when we moved back to our hometown, but I had no mom friends here and really had to put effort into finding them.
Mhm.
But like just the importance of finding somebody who can be like, yeah, I went through the same thing as you are right now.
Mhm.
I felt the same exact way. You're doing fine. Like
Mhm.
5 minutes with your baby in the crib so you can calm down is what you should be doing, and then also once, you're on the other side of it and your friends are having kids, like be that person for them.
Yeah.
Like my best friend had her baby in February and she'd call me and be like, the sunscreen bottle says I can't put it on her till 6 months. I'm like, put this on, it's fine. She's 5 months old. She's
Yes.
absolutely fine,
Yes.
go ahead and
Yes.
put the
Yeah.
sunscreen on her.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
just because there's so much advice out there, it's hard to weigh like what your pediatrician is saying versus all the mommy bloggers versus, the books that you're reading. And it's like, what's okay for me? I don't know. I just need somebody that I know and trust to tell me that what I'm deciding to do is okay. And so
Yeah.
like put effort into finding a community. It will not just appear at your front
No.
door without
Yeah.
effort. It
Yeah.
will not.
Yes. Yeah. I think, and that's hard to imagine. Like you kind of, I think we like look at the movies and see how it just like all perfectly falls together, but that's not really it. And you can be so isolated. And that is probably the loneliest part of parenting, is when you feel
Totally.
isolated. And so it is important to have a community. So mimic what you're saying. How about as a professional, what have you learned about yourself since becoming a mom, or just in your journey as an employee, that you want to share?
Yeah, I think for me, it's been a journey of like being present wherever I'm at. When I'm, with my daughter, I've often felt like, owning my own business, I'm like, well, I should be doing this for work. And then when I'm doing this for work, I'm like, I really should be spending more time with her. And it's always this push and pull of like, I'm never exactly where I should be or want to
Mhm.
be. And then just taking a step back and saying like there's moments and hours for everything, and it's
Mhm.
okay that right now I'm not getting that one thing for work done and I'm spending more time with her. It's okay that I'm working a little bit later so that whatever it may be,
Mhm.
I think it's just like being okay with where you're at when you're there and not always like that was such an exhausting place for me to be like always thinking or feeling like I should be somewhere else. Like you
Mhm.
play that game so long and you aren't, it's just exhausting, honestly. So that's definitely been something I've worked on in therapy of like being okay with where I'm at in that moment, knowing that
Mhm.
like everything else is fine. I will make up for it elsewhere, or maybe I won't, and it'll still be fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, our kids need to be taken care of, but it doesn't always have to be by us. And people can wash the lunchbox that are not us. And right, like our kids can
Just
help
the
and
lunchbox.
other, yeah, like we can put it in a brown bag, right? Like I think there are so many alternatives that we can have. And often it's a um goal or some type of imagination that we have created, some type of picture that we created in our mind,
Mhm.
that that's what good parenting looks like, or that's what being a good employee or a business owner looks like. And yet those things are always evolving. I mean, I know plenty of people who run their own businesses and are not doing their business all day, right? They get everything done within whatever hours they set and that's it. And they
Yeah.
leave. And so I think it's important for us to figure out what works for us. And it's amazing how when life is in balance, when things are in balance, it just feels good. We stop feeling that way about like, am I working enough? Am I responding to client emails enough? Am I seeing my kids enough? Am I going to activities enough? It's like sometimes it's about like I prioritize,
Mhm.
right? What I can control and saying like what is the most important? My family is always the most important. Obviously, have to have an income to like so I have to go to work, but I
Mhm.
think also that like my family comes first.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like for me, that's a choice that I've made. I understand that not everybody can make that choice or maybe that isn't their priority. So I think you have to sit down and maybe prioritize those things too.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good self-help books out there to kind of work through that. But I think a therapist is always a great idea, especially one who is a parent, because I think parenting is one of those things that you can't understand until you are in it.
Absolutely. Can't agree more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think even just with, clients, they have, for their whole careers up until they have children, they've been pushing for that next promotion and trying to really go for it and show their worth in all the ways that they can. Then they have their kid and their priorities change a little bit and but they feel guilty that they're no longer pushing at the same level that they used to. And I'm always like, that's exactly where you should be. It's okay that you take a few years off of pushing for your career success on at 100%. That's
Mhm.
okay. If you are going to do that at any point in your career, it should be when your children are young and need you the most. Like that's fine. Your career will
Mhm.
be here when you're ready to push again. That is just fine. I think
Mhm.
that we get that like, we don't want to play into the stereotype of like, oh, woman has kid, woman forgets about her career. And it's like, it's okay. You can play
Mhm.
into that stereotype. And if that's the right thing for your family, I give you permission to be the stereotype. And I doesn't matter what people say about it.
Mhm.
That's
Well,
what's
and
okay.
doesn't change your worth. You're still
Yeah.
valuable even if you're not at that
Yeah.
job or you don't have that title or whatever. You're still you,
Mhm.
right? And that title is just part of you, right? Part of this letters that came after your name or
Mhm.
whatever, like an email title, but that's not who you are, right? Like you're so
Yeah.
much more than just one part.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard, right? To give that up, but then also to think about like your priorities and what matters the most and what seems to feel right for you. I think our body tells us what's right.
Mhm.
And if we listen to it, like we feel that, then we're probably going to go down the right path. If you're feeling like I just really don't want to be at work, right?
Mhm.
And I don't have to be here. I don't want to be here. I
Yeah.
want to be home, right? Like follow that. But if your body says like I need both, do that, right? I mean, we
Mhm.
can't let the kid part go. That part's an obligation that we have committed to for
Yes,
life.
absolutely.
But I think, it's finding that balance of what works for you. So maybe it's, putting 80% at work instead of 100 so that you have 80% to give at home. Or, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I think that thinking really gets in our way. That we can have a 60% day and that's still 60% of success. Like we
Yeah.
still were on 60% of the time. That's great.
Yeah.
And for some days, like taking a shower when that's like the thing, I would not say that's 100%, right? I remember the newborn days and it was like, I didn't take a shower today. I'd be like, okay, when does my husband get home? I needed a shower, right? Like,
Yeah.
And so, and even if that's 10%, it's still good. So
yeah, and you can change your mind too. Like I, had very much planned to be a stay-at-home mom until my daughter was in kindergarten. And then 18 months in, my little social butterfly was bored with me. And I was really, needing professional success in my life. And so the two of those kind of things made me be like, we need to change. Like you need to go to school some days a week and I need to start a business or do something. And I felt a lot of guilt because it wasn't what I had initially planned, but it ended up being the right thing. So you can change your mind. You don't have to like say, I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom and that's your decision for forever. Like you get to decide 2 months in if that's not what you want to do anymore.
Yeah. Or you go back to work and you decide, no, actually, this isn't it. Or you start a business and you're like, this isn't it. Like we can always change our mind. And I think that's the cool part about, where we're at is that we do have the freedom to change those things. We may still need to work, but it may be like, I need a different setting. I want to work in the academic world now instead of, the corporate world or whatever, right? Like we can change those things and we might find that we find happiness there.
Yeah.
So what do you want families or parents, moms, especially to take away from this conversation?
I think anytime I talk to a mom, it's just if they could take away just the permission to prioritize themselves and whether that looks like self-care or trying to do some work to find out who you are and who you want to be. I think that that's the most valuable thing that you can do, not only for yourself, but for your family as well. And we talk about, I think most moms, their number one priority is their children. And like, that is a really great way of taking care of your children. Your children then get to see a mom who is wholly confident in who they are. And what an amazing gift, especially to give to our little girls growing up needing that confidence as well, is to have a mom who is confident and secure and, goes for whatever they want, whether that's, professional success or to be a stay-at-home mom or whatever it may be.
Yeah, that could be being the PTO president or whatever, being on the PTO, volunteering, like, whatever it is for you, showing our kids that model. Yeah, I think it starts with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the self-care and prioritizing yourself, it doesn't just have to do with you, like take that away, give yourself permission to then it trickle down to the rest of your family,
Yeah, I think that's great. Thank you so much for this conversation today. It has been so lovely.
Yes, likewise. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks again, Hannah. That was a great episode. I am so thankful to have you on today to just remind us to give ourselves grace and to build a network of people to support our family and also to be cognizant of remaining true to ourselves. I think that's an important part of balancing this identity as a mom with our other roles that we play. I hope that you took away some important pieces and that this will help you on your journey. With that, I'll say thank you so much for showing up today. Please like and subscribe to us and follow us on Facebook and Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And also, if you have an episode show topic that you would like covered, please email us at accidentalexperts@gmail.com. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Some words from our legal team.
The information presented in this podcast is not intended or implied to be a substitute for appropriate professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All content, including text, graphics, images, and information contained on or available through this podcast, is for general information purposes only. This podcast makes no representations and assumes no responsibility for the accuracy or information on or available through this podcast, and such information is subject to change without notice. You are encouraged to confirm any information obtained through this program with other sources and review all information regarding any condition or treatment with the appropriate professionals.
What we're saying is, yes, I am a real therapist, but I'm not your therapist.